Sophie's and welcome back to An Abundance of Sophie. So picking up where we left off, on day 8 of my trip, I arrived into Birmingham late in the afternoon. I started, as I always do, by grabbing some food and then tracking down my hostel and checking in. Now, unlike most of this trip where that's where I ended my night, I decided I wanted to go out and explore. Now for me, Birmingham was the highlight of my UK trip. As I mentioned in the Bristol episode, I'd been investigating my heritage and my ancestors quite a bit. And through my research, I had discovered that my Waldron line had originated from Birmingham. So I really wanted to return there and see what remained of my heritage. My great-great-grandfather, William Henry Waldron, was transported to Melbourne from Birmingham as a prisoner in the late 1800s. And his father, Charles, was the last of the Waldrons in my direct line to die in England. So the whole point of going to Birmingham was to try to find his grave, to try and locate where it all began for my family. But that wasn't something that I could do in the dark. So for my first evening in Birmingham, I just had a stroll through the streets, enjoyed the Christmas lights, and then called it a night. So my research led me to find that Charles was buried in the St. Thomas Church Cemetery in October of 1848. But unfortunately, on the 11th of December 1940, all but the tower and the west portico were destroyed in the Birmingham Blitz during World War II. In 1953, the gravestones were removed and the remains were reinterred in the catacombs at Woolstone Lane Cemetery. The grounds were then turned into gardens that in the 90s were redesigned into the now standing Peace Gardens. So I started my search at Woolstone Lane Cemetery because it was the closest location from this story to my hostel. Once I arrived at the cemetery, I wandered around. I thought it was going to be quite easy to find. I thought that there would be some kind of plaque or gravestone or something to mark these remains. And unfortunately, what I found was the complete opposite. There was no mention of them. There was nothing. There was nothing to mark that my ancestor laid there. And that was kind of difficult to take. I wasn't expecting to get emotional. I found what I assumed to be the catacombs, but I have no way of knowing behind which one lies Charles. And I did get a little upset, and I started to question my own mortality a little and realized that when I'm gone, there won't be anyone to remember me either. There won't be anything to mark that I was here. And that was quite a deep and daunting realization for what was supposed to be an exciting discovery. So I left Woolstone Lane with a heavy heart and headed to basically the other side of the city to find the Peace Gardens where St. Thomas Church once remained. And there was a little bit more uplifting, having something physical to stand in front of and try to imagine what the church must have looked like in the past, made it a little easier. Once again, I was disheartened to see that there was no acknowledgement of what once stood where the gardens now were. I think it would have been nice for there to have been a sign or a plaque or something to recognize that this was once a cemetery. This was once a place where people came to remember their lost loved ones. But there was no memory of that. There was no marking of that. And I wonder how many people visit that garden every year and have no idea what once was below their feet. So I left the gardens and headed for Great Colmore Street, which was listed as Charles's last residence when he died. And I was hoping to find some old buildings that I could imagine maybe were where he lived. But unfortunately, everything along the street was of more modern design, and it was very clear that nothing there remained from the 1800s. And with that, it really hit me how much the Blitz damaged the city of Birmingham. The fact that there was so little remaining that would have existed at the time of my ancestors, that there was such a great deal of time separating us. I thought there would at least be physical markers that would bring us together, and it kind of sucked to know that there wasn't. But that brought me to lunchtime, so I settled down, had a bite to eat, collected myself, and decided that I wasn't going to let this bring me down and sour my day. So instead, I went off exploring. So in an effort to lighten my mood, I took in the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery, which is where I spent the majority of my afternoon, and only left once it started to turn dark. I then spent quite a lot of the evening in the main shopping district before grabbing dinner and heading back to the hostel to head to bed. So day 10 dawned, and so did the end of my UK leg of my tour. I still had quite a lot of traveling ahead of me, and I was feeling rather weary, both physically and emotionally, after the day before. So I really took it easy. I spent a couple of hours in a cafe, just reading a book and drinking coffee. And then I just wandered around the shopping district until it was time to once again head to the train station and say goodbye to Birmingham, this time heading back home to London. Now, I was only spending one evening back in London, so I just had dinner with my friends to say goodbye, because I knew this would be my lost opportunity to see them before I flew back to Australia, and I wasn't sure when I would see them next. So it was really good to spend the evening with them, laughing and just telling jokes and sharing stories and just spending time with them, because overall, the couple of months that I got to spend in London, they were the highlights, was seeing all my friends again and catching up with them, and I truly have missed them. And now that it's been a year since I was there again, I still miss them so much. So it was really good to see them. And then I once again checked into a hostel. And then the following morning I headed to the airport to fly to Berlin. And with that, my UK leg of the tour drew to a close, and so too does this episode. Next video, we will be picking up in Europe, where I start in Berlin. So thank you for watching, guys. As always, please like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to my channel, and for a greater abundance of Sophie, you can find me on my social medias. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.